Okay, we're in volume 9 of the Bible story, or I'm reading. We're at part 4, story 5, back to the boats. Okay, by this time the Passover ceremonies were ended for another year. Thousands of people were streaming out of Jerusalem, eager to get back to their homes. Yeah, they were living in the tents. I think that's what they do. Okay, all were chattering excitedly. Never had they had so much to talk about. Though the priests took hope to get rid of Jesus of Nazareth by crucifying him, his name was now on everybody's lips. Some talked about the way he had overturned the tables of the money changers in the temple, others about his trial and the grim procession to Calvary, others of the darkness at the cross and his last cry of agony. But the story that gripped all hearts was the one about the empty tomb. Here was a mystery in the first order. Who had taken his body? The priests, the soldiers, the disciples? What had been done with him and why? While everybody was arguing this way or that, the rumors flew along every highway out of Jerusalem that Jesus wasn't dead after all. He was actually walking out. He actually walked out on his own tomb at the time of the great earthquake. Was the rumors true? Nobody could say, but on and on it went, the most exciting rumor in 1,000 years. As for the disciples, they were glad to be going back to Galilee, and they couldn't get there fast enough. Had not Jesus told them that he would meet them there? 7 of them walked the whole way together. Peter, James, John, Thomas, Nathaniel, and 2 others. All were pleased to be leaving the memories of Jerusalem behind them. It was terribly lonesome without Jesus. The last time they had traveled this road, not many days ago, he had been with them, their leader, their teacher, and their friend. Now they were on their own. By the time, of course, they were quite sure he had risen from the dead, but they wished he might have been one of their little company, talking with them as of old. On their journey they passed many a place that reminded them of him. Every now and then one of them would say, "This is where he healed the leper," or "This is where he gave a blind man sight," or "It is here he told us that he had not come to destroy man's life, but to save them." And then has a picture of fishermen going to the boats. Here it is. Heading back to the boats. These fishermen. Minus. Judas is at 12. But there was actually, well, yeah, they did. Yeah. They had Barnabas. Is that the one? They did put in somebody else to take the place of Judas. I think Barnabas is right. I can't remember, but it does bring when I'm reading stories like this, it kind of brings back things. Okay, let me get back to the story. When they reached Cana of Galilee, the whole flood of memories crowded into their minds, for it was in this village that he had performed his first miracle at the marriage feast. By and by they came to the boughs of the hills from which they could see the lake they loved so dearly. It was beautiful as ever, so calm, so peaceful, so quiet, unchanging by all that had happened. Eagerly they hurried down the last long hill to Tiberias, Tiberias, to on to Capernaum. How wonderful it was to be home once more. Now their minds turned to the questions of what to do next. Peter settled it for them. I'm going fishing, he said. We'll go with you, said the others. So they found their way to the old wharf, and the uh, there, to their joy, were the Giro boats. Just as they left them, what a thrill! They got looking them over, bailing out water, finding the oars, and getting the nets ready. These boats were so tempting that the 7 disciples could hardly wait to get in one of them again. The Bible says, they went forth and entered into the ship immediately. I am sure they did. They couldn't help it. I think I know how they felt. I have been in a boat on Galilee and seen fishermen haul in their nets loaded with fish. It is a wonderful feeling. But a sad disappointment awaited the disciples that night. They didn't catch any fish. Time after time they threw out their nets and hauled them in, only to find them empty. It was very discouraging, especially as they badly needed the money that a good haul would bring them. I wouldn't be surprised if they said one to another, we've forgotten how to do this. We've lost our skill all these months. We've been away. The stars came out and still there were no fish. Midnight passed and their nets were yet empty. Dawn began to break and there was nothing to show for their night's toil. As the morning light grew brighter, they noticed a man standing on the shore. Who can that be standing there at this time of morning? One asked. Can't tell, said another. Seems to be a stranger in these parts. Then, to their surprise, the stranger spoke to them. His voice carried clearly across the hundred yards or so of water that separated them. Children, have you any fish? He called. No, they said sadly. To their amazement, the stranger said, cast the net on the side of the boat, on the right side of the boat. You will find some. Should they or shouldn't they? How could this stranger know where the fish were to be found? So near to the shore, too. Who do you think he was telling them? Had they not toiled all night and caught nothing? But the stranger's voice was so familiar that couldn't take offense. After all, he might know something. They could try. And then got a beautiful, oh, it's a quaid. It says quaid on there. A beautiful seaside. The seagulls and that's the illustration. It says quaid on the bottom. Right here. Quaid. It's very pretty. All the purples and the blues and the cools and the warm of the green. Okay. Let's get back to the story. So they cast the nets overboard once more. Barely had it sank enough, barely had it sink below the surface when something began to happen. Streaks of silver flashed out of the water, gleaming in the sunlight. Fish, said Peter. Fish, cried John. Fish, cried all the rest as they almost tipped the boat over in their eagerness to see the welcoming sight. This old excitement came back again. Pull in the rope, cried Peter. It won't come in, uh, cried Thomas, and the net is too full. And so it was. They were not able to haul it in, for the quantity of fish. Now John Hook looked toward the land. The stranger was still there. He was smiling at them, and there was something about that smile that John recognized. It's the Lord, he whispered to Peter. Peter took one look and saw it was true. And then got the big R, so it's a Remy of the fish. Huh. And it's got the bobbers, the red bobbers. Well, they probably did paint them red. And it's a full page. They could paint the floaters painted red back then. Because if I know my history and what they say, that some of the statues that you see now were painted bright colors back in the day. Okay, well, that was part 4, story 5. So it's time for the break, and then I'll be back here in a bit.